She doesn't remember the first time she stopped looking at you. Maybe it was when your voice curled upward in apology before you even knew what you'd done. Or maybe it was when you smiled too quickly, that thin, trembling smile, stretched like damp paper over desperation. She doesn't remember. But her body did. It leaned away, and so did time. You, the man who once filled a room, began to vanish like breath against a mirror. No, not because you were cruel, not because you failed, but because you vanished before she asked you to. You disappeared in the hope she'd stay. Do you remember the dream where you were chasing something only to find it grows smaller the closer you get? That is how she sees you now. Not with hate, but with the strange ache of watching something collapse before it's even touched. A mirror with no reflection, a gift with no weight, a yes that means nothing because it never learned how to say no. She doesn't fear your anger. She fears your absence, the one you dress in politeness. You always thought she would stay if you were good, if you were soft, safe, understanding a man without edges, a man who always knew how to bend. You believed kindness was a currency, and the more you spent, the more you would be loved. So you gave, even when you were empty. You nodded before she finished speaking. You said yes before she even asked. You quieted your own hunger in the hope that she would be fed, but she was not. And you could not understand why the more you pleased her, the more distant she became until one day, her eyes no longer searched for you at all. She began to recoil from the very thing you thought would hold her, the tenderness you offered like a child pressing wilted flowers into her hands. She did not throw them away. She simply forgot to hold them. And somewhere in your chest, something began to rot. Because it was not cruelty that undid you. It was the slow, silent erosion of being needed less each day, of being seen as sweet, but unnecessary. She smiled at you the way people smile at stray dogs, not out of affection, out of pity. You stood in doorways waiting for her attention like a servant with a silver tray, wordless, watchful, always one command away from performing. She did not ask you to do this, and that is what made it worse. She never asked you to disappear. You chose to hoping she would reward the vanishing. But no woman respects the man who erases himself in exchange for proximity. She may accept him, she may use him, she may even miss him once he's gone, but she will never kneel to his presence, never long for his voice in silence, never fear losing what was already so eager to be lost. You became a man who asked for nothing, and so you gave her nothing to betray. No one weeps over a ghost. No one mourns the man who made every sacrifice before he was asked to bleed. The tragedy is not that you were too kind. It is that your kindness came wrapped in starvation, not generosity. You were not offering her your strength. You were begging her to eat you, and she tasted that. The hunger in your voice, the emptiness behind your yes. You said yes, not as a choice, but as an instinct. Because the silence that follows a no, that abyss of uncertainty, was too terrifying for you to risk. So you filled every space with agreement. You became agreeable to the point of absence, compliant to the edge of erasure. You thought she would thank you for this, but instead, she turned away. Because something primal inside her understood the man who never says no is not protecting her. He is protecting himself from her disapproval. And that is not love. That is cowardice. There is a moment brief and cold when a woman looks at the man beside her and sees not a partner, but a placeholder, a background character in the story of her own dominance. She does not need to speak it. She does not even need to think it. Her body moves away on its own. Her tone hardens. Her laughter grows thinner, and you, still smiling, still nodding, feel it though you cannot name it. You mistake it for confusion, but it is something older than that. It is contempt, and it is born not from your weakness, but from your refusal to contain any resistance. Even the moon is respected more in its absence than in its constant glow. But you have no phases, no shadow, no hidden half. You are always there, full, bright, predictable, and that is why she no longer lifts her eyes to find you. Mystery dies where obedience begins. You thought safety would keep her close, but it is danger that makes the heart beat faster. Not the danger of harm, but the danger of encountering a man who cannot be possessed. A man whose yes has weight because his no exists. A man who may stay, but only by his own will. She does not want to lead. She wants to be led by someone who cannot be tamed. You offered her sanctuary, but made it a cage. You offered her love, but made it an apology. You thought submission was the price of affection, not realizing that true affection only grows where something must be earned. And you gave yourself too easily. She had no cliff to climb, no fire to walk through, no sacred gate to open. You left everything unlocked, and in doing so, you left yourself unworthy of being entered. Now you wonder why she grows cold when you offer warmth, why she mocks your softness, why she prefers the man who ignores her. It is not because she is cruel. It is because you made yourself too available, too explainable, too void of consequence. You were supposed to be a force, a frontier, a fire. Instead, you became furniture. She can sit on you. She can rest. But she will never admire you, never fear you, never choose you with trembling hands. The truth is brutal. She longs for the man who makes her earn his yes, not with manipulation, but with merit, with presence, with truth. She wants to know that your desire is not for her approval, but for her essence, that you would rather walk alone than walk beside a woman who does not kneel to your soul. But you always chose proximity over presence, attention over authority, her pleasure over your truth. And now you are starving, even as you feed her every word she wants to hear. The worst part is, she doesn't even hate you. She simply cannot see you anymore. You faded beneath your own kindness. You vanished inside your own smile. You erased yourself one yes at a time, until there was nothing left for her to push against. And a love that cannot be pushed against cannot be touched. It is nothing but mist, and she is flesh. She needs resistance to feel. You still believe love means giving, but she is still waiting for you to stop offering your neck and start offering your eyes. Not the eyes that beg, the eyes that dare. The ones that say, I choose you, but I will never need you to choose me back. That is the look she worships. That is the look you buried beneath obedience. And now, as she lays beside you, you feel her drifting, not to another man, but to the part of herself that only wakes when a storm is near. And you, so calm, so accommodating, you are no storm. You are the weathered sky before rain, familiar, safe, already gone. Say yes again. Watch her soul sleepwalk away from you, and still you wonder why. You think she punishes you for being kind. You're wrong. She punishes you for being harmless, because something in her blood remembers the ancient truth. The animal without thorns cannot protect, cannot hunt, cannot command. You arrive without edge, without threat, without gravity, a creature shaped to please, not to endure. And she sees it, long before she says it. A man who would rather be liked than feared is a man she cannot trust with her body, her chaos, her future. You show her your soft hands and think she will feel safe, but she is not looking for softness. She is watching for substance. You wear your emotions like a leash, hoping she will be moved by your transparency, hoping vulnerability will become a substitute for strength. But it doesn't. Not in her eyes. She sees it for what it is, not intimacy, but exposure, not courage, but a demand, please understand me so you won't leave. You speak gently, you never raise your voice. You accommodate her every shift, but in doing so, you become nothing more than a shape molded by her needs. You disappear and call it love. You follow and call it respect. But deep in your chest, resentment festers like mold under still water. You hate her not because she wounded you, but because she no longer believes you can. You weren't born this way. You learned it, somewhere, long ago. You decided that the only way to be worthy of love was to amputate everything dangerous in you. You clipped your own claws. You dulled your instincts. You made yourself easy to digest. And now you wonder why no one feels nourished by your presence. It is because you have nothing left that bites. Nothing left that resists digestion. You are emotionally available, endlessly supportive, and utterly invisible. The man who cannot be opposed is the man who cannot be desired. Because desire requires distance, the spark of tension, the presence of something untamed. You turned yourself into her shadow, and shadows cannot be touched. They follow, they echo, they depend, and slowly she begins to feel the horror of being adored by something that will never stand against her. You think love means never being the cause of her pain, but pain is not the enemy. Pain is the edge of truth. Pain is what happens when real things touch. A love without pain is a love without depth, without reality, without cost. You fear hurting her so much that you deny her the very thing that awakens longing, your power. And power, to a woman, is not in the loudness of your voice, but in your refusal to collapse. You think a real man never dominates, but that is your mistake. You have confused domination with destruction. What she longs for is not to be destroyed, but to be overwhelmed not by your control, but by your refusal to abandon your own spine. She wants to feel your will like gravity. She wants to know that you can hold her fire without trembling, but you retreat. Every time she tests your frame, you give. You call it compassion, but to her, it is weakness. She throws storms at you not to break you, but to see what holds, and you, eager to prove your goodness, absorb it all like a sponge. She's not impressed. She's insulted. Because every time you fail to assert your boundary, you rob her of the man she wanted to follow. You leave her alone with her own dominance, a place no woman wants to live in forever. She does not want a pet. She wants a predator who has chosen peace. She wants a man whose silence is not submission, but sovereignty. A man who can shatter the room with his presence, but chooses to watch instead. You hide behind your kindness because you're afraid of your rage. You've never let her see it, not even once. Not the clean rage, not the sacred anger, not the fire that says this is who I am, and I will not move for you. And because you've buried it, she cannot trust you. You think your calmness is strength, but calmness born of fear is not strength. It is paralysis. And she senses it. She senses that your stillness is not rooted in depth, but in avoidance. You will not fight. You will not challenge. You will not walk away. And therefore, you have no value. Because value comes from scarcity, and you are always available, always explaining, always there. You think by saying yes, you make her feel loved. But what you really do is make her feel unseen. Because your yes does not honor her, it avoids her. You avoid her demands by collapsing into them. You avoid her intensity by pretending it doesn't shake you. You avoid her soul by trying to soothe it, rather than stand in front of it like a mirror. She pushes you, and you smile. She wounds you, and you forgive. She tests you, and you fold, and each time, her respect bleeds out like water through cracked stone. She cannot help it. It's biological, it's spiritual, it's ancient. She needs to feel your frame, not the frame of your shoulders, but the frame of your being. She needs to know you have a line, that something inside you will not bend, not for her, not for anyone. But your line has vanished. You gave it away in pieces, with every eager yes, every soft apology, every moment you chose peace over truth. You handed her your manhood in 1,000 invisible gestures, and now you blame her for not cherishing it. You tell yourself you're a good man, and maybe you are, but goodness without gravity becomes a ghost. She does not want to haunt a man. She wants to be haunted by one, haunted by the memory of your gaze, haunted by the echo of your absence, haunted by the knowledge that you could be gone and that she must rise to be worthy of your staying. But you are always there, like furniture, like fog, like forgiveness she didn't ask for, and so she cannot feel you. And if she cannot feel you, she cannot love you, because love, real love, is born not in comfort, but in recognition, and she no longer recognizes you. You ask her what she needs. You wait for her to tell you how to be a man, but no woman can tell you that. It is not her job to sculpt your spine. She is waiting for you to stop asking, to stop performing, to stop orbiting her like a planet with no center of gravity. She is waiting for you to remember yourself, not the nice boy, not the obedient partner, but the man who does not flinch, because deep down, she is not afraid of your power. She is afraid you never had any. You kept waiting for the moment she'd finally see you, not the version you shaped for her approval, but the real you, the one buried beneath all your yeses. But the moment never came, because she can't see what you refuse to show. And you never showed yourself. You showed her comfort, softness, patience, the features of a man with no border, no mountain behind his eyes. You became a space she could always enter, but she never stayed, because a woman does not fall in love with the space. She falls in love with the one who owns it. Every time she stepped closer, you stepped back not physically, but spiritually. You disappeared into her needs. You adjusted. You edited your desires, softened your opinions, muted your hunger. You told yourself it was noble, that love meant sacrifice, that the more of yourself you gave away, the more room you made for her. But she never asked for a room. She asked for a man, and you gave her a door with no lock, a cage she could walk into and walk out of just as easily, because you never told her no. You never stopped her at the edge. You never claimed anything. You watched her leave with grace. You watched her laugh with men who said less, gave less, offered nothing but their unyielding presence. You told yourself she was confused, immature, damaged, but in truth, she was only responding to what you denied, that respect cannot grow in the soil of submission, that devotion cannot bloom where there is no resistance, that love, real love, needs to tremble not because it's fragile, but because it's alive. And you are not alive, not to her. You exist, yes, you function, you wait, but you do not breathe. You do not risk, you do not claim. You are a man who stands beside her like a priest beside a locked altar, reverent, pure, and untouched. But no woman wants to worship. She wants to be claimed. She wants the hand that says, I will not move when she tests you. She wants the eyes that say, you may enter, but only if I allow it. Not with cruelty, with clarity. You thought clarity was aggression. You thought saying no would make you cruel, that boundaries would drive her away. But it wasn't your boundaries that scared her. It was your absence, the slow death of your own gravity. You became a man so eager to be chosen that you never asked if you would choose her. You never made her rise to meet you. You lowered yourself inch by inch until she could walk across your soul without even looking down. She doesn't hate you. She may even speak kindly of you. But kindness is not the same as respect. She does not dream of you. She does not ache for your approval, because your approval was never costly. It was given freely, always, without hesitation. And what is always given is never wanted. She needed to know she could lose you, that your love had weight, that if she betrayed herself, you would not stand by, that if she disrespected you, you would walk away, but you didn't. You stayed, no matter what. And so she knew this man is safe, but he is not sacred, because a sacred man is not afraid to be alone. He does not need permission to speak. He does not wait to be wanted. He is with or without her, and in that being, there is terror, the terror of something real, the terror of a man who cannot be possessed. But you were never terrifying. You were comforting, you were warm, and warmth without flame does not burn. It fades. She waited for you to stand, to rise, to bare your teeth, not at her, for yourself, to show that you exist beyond her moods, beyond her approval, beyond her ability to reward or withhold. But you kept bending and bending and bending until your spine became a question mark, and a woman cannot follow a man who has already knelt. You gave her everything except the one thing she needed: friction. The friction of a man who will not dissolve. The friction of a yes that could have been a no. The friction of a soul that would rather burn than bend out of shape. Now she drifts. She may stay in body, but her gaze floats elsewhere towards something she cannot name, towards something ancient, toward the echo of a man who can contain her without controlling her, a man whose silence holds her louder than your endless yes ever did. And you feel it, the cold, the absence inside the presence, the way she touches you without reaching, the way her voice softens out of duty, not desire. You ask her what's wrong. She says she doesn't know, but she does. Her body knows. Her bones know. They are starving, not for attention, not for comfort, for presence, for pressure, for the weight of a man who does not disappear in love. You thought the cage was hers, that she held you there, that you were trapped by her expectations, but the door was never locked. You locked it from the inside, with fear, with need, with the belief that you must be liked to be loved. And now, you sit inside the open cage, wondering why she never comes in. It is because she cannot. She needs to meet you outside, on the ground, in the wilderness, where you bleed, where you stand, where you say, I am not afraid of your fire, and I will not extinguish mine for you. That is what you must become. Not for her, for yourself. Not a better man, a real one, a man who doesn't hide behind goodness, a man whose no is not violent, but final, a man whose yes is not fearful, but free. She may return, she may not. That is not the point. The point is that your value was never in being wanted. It was in being undeniable. You became a mirror that only reflected her light. Now she's looking for a flame, and you are still staring into the emptiness you built, wondering why no one stays. It is not too late, but it is already later than you think. You do not need to become cruel. You need to become whole. You need to stop apologizing for your edges. Stop asking for permission to exist. Stop whispering your truths like confessions. Let them ring like thunder. Let them burn like wood that has waited too long to be lit. Do not ask if she will love you. Ask if you can love yourself when you no longer beg. She will not stay in a cage that opens for her before she knocks. She does not want freedom. She wants a frontier, a place she cannot claim unless she surrenders to. And you were never that place. You were the floor, the cushion, the silence after her rage, but never the wall she leaned against, never the fire that warned her she was not alone. You were kind, but you were not dangerous. You were open, but you were not unshakable. You were present, but you were not rooted. And so she flew, not because she wanted to, because she had to, because you made yourself so safe that even she could not feel real inside your arms. She may remember you, but only like a room with no corners, a place she entered, turned twice, and never knew where she had been. Somewhere soft, somewhere soundless, somewhere no one ever said no. And that is why she left, not in anger, not in betrayal, but in silence. The same silence you gave her every time you said yes.